Imagine a casino, a place where dreams are made and shattered in the blink of an eye. It's vast, opulent, and filled with the constant jingle of coins and the murmur of anticipation. The air is thick with the scent of hope and desperation. People from all walks of life are drawn to its bright lights and the promise of riches. The allure is almost magnetic, pulling in everyone from the seasoned gambler to the curious first-timer. Some walk away winners, their pockets full, their faces beaming with joy. But many more leave empty-handed, their dreams dashed, wondering where it all went wrong. The thrill of the win is fleeting, but the sting of loss lingers. This, my friends, is a pretty apt metaphor for the capitalist system we live in. A system where the promise of success is dangled in front of us, but the reality is often much harsher. Now, before you accuse me of being some radical socialist, let me assure you, I own more screen-printed t-shirts than any reasonable human should. I enjoy the fruits of capitalism as much as the next person, but there's no denying that the current state of capitalism feels a bit like that casino after a particularly rough night. The tables are empty, the chips are scattered, and the sense of loss is palpable. The house, as always, seems to come out on top, while the rest of us are left picking up the chips, wondering if the odds were ever really in our favor. The game feels rigged and the sense of fairness is elusive. So how did we get here? How did we end up in a system where the few thrive while the many struggle? Buckle up, dear viewers, because it's going to be a wild ride through the history of capitalism, its inherent flaws, and crucially, what the hell we can do about it. We'll explore the roots of this system, the pivotal moments that shaped it, and the cracks that have begun to show. Because here's the thing, we can't just shut down the casino. It's too entrenched, too integral to the way our world operates. It's the only game in town. And for many, it's the only hope they have. But we can sure as hell try to understand the rules, maybe even learn how to tilt the odds in our favor just a little bit. Knowledge is power, and understanding the system is the first step to changing it. Otherwise, we're all just gambling with our future. And in a game where the house always wins, that's a risk we can't afford to take. To understand capitalism, we need to take a trip back in time to a period of immense change and innovation. Picture it, England, 18th century. A land of cobblestone streets, horse-drawn carriages, and bustling marketplaces. The Industrial Revolution is in full swing, and with it comes a radical new idea, capitalism. This era was marked by a surge in technological advancements and a shift in economic paradigms.
Adam Smith, the OG capitalist cheerleader, argued that if everyone just looked out for their own self-interest, the collective good would naturally follow. The invisible hand of the market, he claimed, would magically guide us all towards prosperity. It sounded good on paper, a perfect blend of individual ambition and societal benefit. And for a while there, it seemed like Smith might actually be onto something. Cities grew, industries flourished, and wealth was generated at an unprecedented rate.
Factories popped up like mushrooms, seemingly overnight, churning out goods at an unprecedented rate. The hum of machinery and the clatter of production lines became the new soundtrack of progress. The world was changing, and capitalism was the driving force. But like all good origin stories, this one had a darker side, one that involved a lot less magic and a lot more exploitation. The workers who fueled this economic engine were often treated like cogs in the machine, working long hours in dangerous conditions for meager wages. Their toil and sweat were the real price of progress, a stark contrast to the prosperity promised by the invisible hand. Despite its flaws, there's no denying that capitalism has achieved some pretty remarkable things. From the towering skyscrapers that define our cities to the bustling stock exchanges that fuel our economies, the impact is undeniable. It's fueled innovation, lifted millions out of poverty, and, let's not forget, put a man on the moon. Yes, the very system that drives our daily lives has also driven humanity to reach for the stars. That's right, the same system that gave us sweatshops also gave us Tang and space travel. It's a paradox, a duality that showcases both the best and the worst of what capitalism can offer. It's a complicated relationship, folks. On one hand, we have the innovation and progress, on the other the exploitation and inequality. The 20th century saw capitalism go global. Trade routes expanded and markets opened up, creating a web of economic interdependence that spanned the globe. Free markets spread like wildfire, bringing with them a wave of consumerism and unprecedented economic growth. Shopping malls became the new town squares, and supermarkets offered an abundance of choices. For the first time in human history, more people had access to goods and services than ever before. The convenience and variety available to the average consumer were unparalleled. The American dream, that shining beacon of capitalist achievement, felt within reach. Owning a home, a car, and having a stable job became attainable goals for many. And you knew there was a but coming, didn't you? The story of capitalism isn't all sunshine and rainbows. This period of unprecedented growth came at a cost. The environment suffered, and social inequalities became more pronounced. The gap between the haves and the have-nots widened, resources were exploited at an alarming rate, and the very planet we call home started sending out distress signals. Climate change, deforestation, and pollution are just some of the issues we now face as a result of unchecked capitalism. Remember that casino metaphor? Well, sometimes the house loses, and when it does, it loses big. The Great Depression of the 1930s was a stark reminder that the capitalist system wasn't as infallible as some had believed. The stock market crashed, unemployment skyrocketed, and the global economy went into a tailspin.
Fast forward a few decades, and we saw it happen again with the 2008 financial crisis. This time, it was the subprime mortgage market that triggered the collapse. Banks, drunk on deregulation and risky investments, had been handing out loans like candy on Halloween, and when the housing bubble burst, the whole system went kaput.
These crises expose the inherent fragility of capitalism. It's a system prone to booms and busts, bubbles and crashes. And while some argue that these are just natural cycles, the human cost of these downturns is undeniable. So where are we now?
Well, the alarm bells are ringing, my friends. Global debt is at an all-time high, wealth inequality is staggering, and climate change is no longer a distant threat but a very present danger.
These aren't just abstract economic indicators, they're flashing red signs that something is fundamentally wrong. The gap between the rich and the poor is wider than ever.
A tiny fraction of the global population controls a disproportionate amount of wealth, while millions struggle to make ends meet. This level of inequality isn't just morally wrong, it's economically unsustainable.
We're living beyond our means, consuming resources at a rate our planet simply cannot sustain. Climate change is already wreaking havoc around the world, and yet we're still hooked on fossil fuels and unsustainable practices.
It's like we're on a runaway train, and the brakes are out.
Section 6. The financial wizards. Or are they just spinning plates? Now let's talk about the financial institutions, those bastions of capitalism, the gatekeepers of our economic system.
They play a crucial role in facilitating growth and investment, but they have also been the architects of some of the most spectacular financial meltdowns in history. Remember the 2008 crisis? Yeah, that was fun. It showed us that when left unchecked, these institutions can become too big to fail, taking reckless risks with our money and then asking for bailouts when things go south. It's like letting a toddler loose in a candy store with your credit card.
The problem is, these institutions are often incentivized to prioritize short-term profits over long-term stability. They're playing a high-stakes game, and the rest of us are the ones holding our breath, hoping they don't drop the ball. Again. Section 7. Fixing the engine while the car's still running. So, what can we do? Well, the first step is acknowledging that the current system is broken. We can't just slap a band-aid on a gaping wound and hope for the best. We need systemic change.
One idea gaining traction is sustainable investing. It's about time we stopped treating the planet like an endless resource and started investing in businesses that prioritize environmental and social responsibility.
We also need stricter regulations on financial institutions. Remember that toddler in the candy store? Yeah, maybe we should take away the credit card before they buy the entire place. Section 8. The cost of doing nothing. Spoiler, it's not pretty. The consequences of inaction are dire. We're facing a perfect storm of economic, social, and environmental crises. Ignoring these problems won't make them go away. It'll just make them worse.
Imagine a world ravaged by climate change, where extreme weather events are the norm, resources are scarce, and inequality is rampant. That's the future we're headed towards if we don't act now. It's not about choosing between capitalism and something else. It's about recognizing that the system we have is flawed and needs an upgrade. We need a capitalism that works for everyone, not just the privileged few. We need a capitalism that prioritizes people and the planet over short-term profits.
Section 9. Capitalism 2.0. Or maybe 3.0 question mark, we've lost count. The future of capitalism isn't predetermined. It's up to us to shape it. We can choose to continue down the path of unchecked greed and environmental destruction, or we can choose a different path, one that leads to a more just and sustainable future.
We need a capitalism that's grounded in fairness, sustainability, and a genuine concern for the well-being of all people. We need a capitalism that recognizes the limits of our planet and prioritizes long-term thinking over short-term gains. The challenges are immense, but so is our capacity for innovation and change. The time for complacency is over. The time for action is now. Let's get to work.